Hi guys, Steph here. Now, first of all, sorry I've not been around for a while due to unforeseen circumstances and general commitments. I've not been too active on the fountain pen scene, but well, recently I got a couple of pens. This one came into me. I've fully restored it. We've put a new sack in it, cleaned it. An absolutely gorgeous example. Some people will see this and recognise what it is, and some may not. But what we have here is the Eversharp Skyline fountain pen. Now, in the early days when these were sort of launched between 1941 and I believe around about 1948, I think they were actually termed as the Skyliner, and for whatever reason that name was actually shortened slightly to the Skyline. Now, these particular pens at the time, they were launched in many different sort of combinations and colours. There was some had the barrels with just the standard colours, black, blue, red or whatever. The caps were different. Some of them had gold filled caps with stripes. Some of them had colours, etc. Even some had the bands on them. Some had the autograph bands. Some had a narrow band. As you can see, this particular one has no bands. So they came in lots and lots of different combinations, and of course at the top of the range, you know, you had the gold one, which I believe is very collectible and very sought after, but this particular one, this also is quite a sought after model. This particular colour is what they term as a grey modern stripe colour, and again they brought out not just the grey, but they brought them out in a green, I believe a garnet, a brown and a blue as well. Now, although I say this is the grey modern, if you actually, in real life, if you actually look at this particular pen, it looks more like silver. It's a very attractive colour. It's absolutely beautiful, it is. As I say, from the early 1940s through to 1948, they brought them out in three sizes. They brought out what they term as a demi size. Now, in inches, I believe it was 4 7/8 inches. The standard, which this particular model is 5 1/4 inch in length, and they brought out a slightly bigger one, I believe around about 5 5/8 of an inch, and that was what they term as the executive. Now, this particular pen in a diameter at the thickest section here is approximately about 12 millimeters in diameter. You may have actually noticed this particular one is a lever fill fountain pen, as you can see there. There's no imprint on these particular pens. The only sort of imprints or any names, if you like, as you can see on the clip there, it has the word Eversharp. Now again, there was some slight sort of differences. Some had a little logo to the top. This, I believe, as I'll show you in a moment, is I believe to be an early version. You can see to the top it's got this sort of little rounded sections which they term, I think they term it as a derby, and you can see the clip, if you like, goes straight over the derby there to the back, and it has this sort of band to the very top of the cap there. Now, if I sort of hold it quite still, I don't know if you'll be able to read it, but on that particular little band there, it actually says Eversharp. It's got the word ink and then pat, and then just to the right hand side it has made in USA. So as I say, we've got this lovely gorgeous pen. Now, as you can see, the pen actually from the top to the bottom, it tapers, if you like, to a point. And I believe when this particular pen was launched, and well, if you like, when it was designed from a gentleman by the name of Henry Dreyfus. Now, Henry Dreyfus, there's some thought that the pen, if you like, this particular pen, if you look at it straight on there, had some influences on some sort of a locomotive from the New York Railway Company. There we go. And so what we'll do, there's a photograph of the pen, and you can also see this particular locomotive to the right there. So you can see there's quite a bit of quite a bit of influence on the design of the pen with regards to this particular locomotive. So let's come back here to the pen. So as I say, what we have here is the grey modern stripe pattern. Now the cap on this one unscrews, and if we take the pen and give you some little different angles, as you can see, in absolutely beautiful condition. As I say, the pattern and the colour, as opposed to grey, it's more of a shimmering silver in real life. It's absolutely beautiful. Let's pop the cap down like so. What you'll notice just to this particular area here, it's got this sort of smooth sort of step, if you like, which means that when the cap actually sits on it, it sits flush with the barrel. So I don't know if you can actually see it there. It sort of just comes out slightly on this like smooth little step here. You can see we've got the thread there. And another thing you'll notice with this section there, the reason I say this is the earlier model, you can see to the bottom there we've got this transparent section, and I believe that is an indication of this particular model is the earlier model. The later models, I believe, just simply had this, the section was just simply black. And also what you'll notice inside there, you'll see it's got this breather tube inside, connected to the end of the feed inside. Excuse me. Now, one thing you can't see on this particular one, most of these pens, the feeder tube or the breather tube is a straight tube. This particular one, the earlier models had a slight curve. The breather tube slightly curves, and I've seen it actually being termed as a tail, if you like, a curved tail. But the difference is being, again, that is another indication that this particular one is the earlier version, by the fact that the breather tube inside has a slight curvature to it, very similar to the feeds on the Lucky Curve fountain pen. So there we go. You can see the section to the top. It actually flares out slightly towards the nib there. Now, if we show you the nib there, let's keep it nice and still for you. You'll see the nib actually reads Eversharp, and then it's got 14 carat. Below that, made in USA. And one thing again you can't see because it's inside the section, it actually has to the bottom of the nib, it has the number 25. Let's try and give you another little view of the nib, and let's keep it nice and still and give you once more a little view there. Now let's give you a sideways view. You can see the feed underneath the nib there, and if we turn it over, you can see it's got this very recognizable Eversharp feed to the back of the nib there. So again, let's keep it nice and still. As you can see there, we've cleaned everything, everything's been polished, it's in beautiful condition, an absolutely beautiful pen. Okay, so there's the feed underneath for you there. I hope that's nice and clear for you. As we've said before, the pen has been fully restored by me. I've took a lot of time with it. It's a beautiful example. But yes, I know you people want to see how it writes. So what we'll do, let's bring on our ink. And again, I don't really need to tell you what we do. We simply dip the nib in the ink and pull on the lever to fill the pen. So let's do that. Let's dip it in the ink. We'll just do it simply once. We don't need a lot, just for a writing sample. You couldn't actually see it, but there's a little bit of bubbling going on inside the ink. So let's pop that to one side. Let's bring on excuse me, let's bring on our paper. So what we have here is the okay, just needs a little bit of to get started. So what we'll do, let's give it a few lines. Right, for some reason it's just writing a little bit dry, but as I said, in most cases this is the first time the pen actually gets used when I actually restore it. But as you can see, as we're beginning to write, it's beginning to flow. So as I say, what we have is a Eversharp. As we said, this particular model is called the Skyline, although in earlier days they called it the Skyline. As we said, we're dating the pen from 1941. Again, because it's an earlier model, we're dating it around about 1941, although as we said, the pen went through all the way through to around about 1948. There's no flexibility on this particular nib. The Skyliner nibs are quite renowned for being actually, well, supposedly nice writers. There's lots and lots of different combinations of nibs. I won't go into them, but in this particular case, this one I would say, well, it's a fine nib. There's no flexibility in the nib. And as you can see now, although in the beginning, because it's the first time it's actually been inked, it was writing a little bit dry and skipping, etc. But as you can see now, it's flowing nicely and we've got a lovely line. So as you can see, there you go. It didn't start very well at first. Once the ink began to come through, there you go, we've got a lovely example of the writing, and again writing with a fine line. No flexibility in the nib. It's quite a hard nib, but all in all, a lovely writer. So let's put the cap back on. So there we have it. That is the Eversharp Skyline fountain pen in this beautiful grey modern stripe, although I'm repeating myself, but although it's a grey stripe, in sort of nice light, it looks more like a shimmering silver. Some of these pens, you know, some of the colours, they had a tendency to discolour, but this one is absolutely superb, a beautiful example. And what we'll do, let's try and find a new home for it. Somebody's going to actually love this pen and hopefully enjoy it. And I hope you've enjoyed looking at the pen, and hopefully we'll see you soon. But I hope you've enjoyed looking at the pen, as always, as much as I enjoy showing them to you. But for now, I'll just say bye bye now.